Assalamu alaikum. May peace be on you. I'm going to be talking about a very important hadith. This is from As-Sunan al-Kubra lil Bayhaqi, and Sheikh al-Albani rahimahullah considered it to be Hasan. So Hasan is the second level of hadith which is seen as the most authentic after Sahih. So this is very authentic hadith. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Qala Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam." He said, "La darara wa la dirara. Wa man dara darrahu Allah, wa man shaqqa shaqqa Allahu alayhi." What does this mean? La darara wa la dirara, which means do not harm anybody and do not return harm. This is the first part of the hadith. So what does that mean? Don't harm anybody. Yes, we understand. Do not harm anybody. If somebody has harmed, then it is clearly understood that he is creating some sort of an offense against somebody. We can understand. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he goes to say, do not return harm. What does that mean? It means that if somebody harms you, do not return that harm. Do not reciprocate to that harm with another harm. So this is the beautiful hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We must question ourselves, are we applying this in our lives? It's very important. What we see in this dunya is that we generally tend to have the notion an eye for an eye and the tooth for a tooth. If somebody has harmed me, I need to harm him back. This is not the right understanding. The eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth is the verdict which is given by the court of law, after the proofs are being ascertained, after the trials are given, and the punishment for a crime is something which is equivalent of that crime. This is what the Quran is making us understand. And what we have to understand is that without any ability, you are not supposed to punish anybody. So the ability here is that you need to be a leader or you need to be a judge for whom the authority is been given. So without authority, you cannot take law in your hands. So la darara wa la dirara, which clearly says, do not harm anybody and do not reciprocate harm. Do not return the harm. This can be understood in a wide way, that when you are traveling on the streets, when you're walking on the streets, you are eating something, whatever you might eat some snacks and you have some container. After eating, if you're throwing it on the street, then that is a harm. That is a harm. And when you want to correct that person, you cannot go and beat him up and say you have done something wrong. So again, that becomes another wrong. So you cannot correct the wrong with a wrong. That's what we must understand from this hadith. Then we go further to understand the next part. Man dara darrahullah. Whoever harms anyone, then Allah would harm him. Whoever harms a person, then Allah would harm that person who is causing this harm. Waman shaqqa shaqqallahu alayhi. And whoever is harsh against anybody, then Allah would be harsh against that person. So harshness is disliked by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and harshness is disliked by Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Islam does not encourage harshness. Even when we want to correct somebody, we cannot be harsh. So this applies to the parents. This applies to the parents. If they are seeing their little ones doing something wrong, they cannot be harsh in correcting them. They have to discipline the children, but they cannot humiliate them. It's a very thin line which differentiates between disciplining and humiliating. And then we must also understand, as being teachers, we have great responsibilities. If the child has not written the exams well, or the child has not given the right answer, or has not completed the classwork or the homework, whatever it may be, you have to talk to the child. You must counsel the child, you must encourage the child, you must motivate the child, you must direct him and orient him towards something which is right. But you cannot be harsh, you cannot yell at him, you cannot throw all your anger at him for his mistake. We understand, we acknowledge that there is a mistake done by the child, but you cannot be harsh. And Islam encourages kindness, and Islam denounces harshness. So the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever is harsh against anybody, then Allah would be harsh against him. Oh, that's a warning. That's a warning that applies to everybody. That applies to me, that applies to you, that applies to everybody. That applies to the head of the state. If you're a prime minister or the chief minister or whatever minister you are, or you are in the bureaucracy, you are leading a department, you cannot be harsh against anybody who's working under you. You cannot be harsh against the subordinates. Be very mindful of this. We are not here to just say that we are Muslims. Just by saying that I'm a Muslim, we are not granted salvation. We are not granted Jannah. We will be tested every day in a different form. Allah would want us to, pass through these tests as to how we do, how we perform our duties, even in dire situations, even in times when it is very difficult, we must show the best of our character. And that's where the test is. If everything is going right, where is the test? It's only when there is turbulence, and how do you handle that turbulence, you will be granted reward for that. And that's all for now. Don't be harsh and do not harm anybody. Assalamu alaikum.
And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Thank you.